Close your eyes and imagine. Here you are out at sea, surrounded by the great blue. All you have is a waka and a paddle. But out in the distance, you spot something beautiful, glorious, something promised by a king and sculpted by God himself. You begin to paddle, one stroke after the other, until your arms ache. But you don't move. You're stuck there. You wonder why. So you paddle again, and still you don't move. You need help. So you look around and find 5 other people sitting behind you. You're happy to see one person trying to help, but you grow angry when you see 2 with their paddles in the water opposing all movement, and angrier when you see 2 with their paddles out of the water doing nothing. This analogy is us. This is who we are and who we've been for far too long. A country divided, unable to make the necessary changes to reach that greater place. My great-grandfather was one of those paddlers. He was a soldier during World War II, and like many young men, he enlisted fueled on the rush to see the world. However, he also enlisted at the time that Sir Auahatanga was preaching about the price of citizenship. How that if Māori wished to gain the full rights of a New Zealand citizen, we must fulfil our agreement to the Treaty of Waitangi. And that my great-grandfather did. He fought. And when he returned, he got the whole shebang. He got the parades, the admiration, the medals, the woman. He was just missing one thing, that equality part. Not all the paddlers continued to pull their weight. Before the war, Māori struggled to gain parity, particularly in age and widow benefits, and not to mention the impact of colonisation and the loss of land for some iwis, as well as the introduction of the Native Schools Act, which prohibited the use of te reo Māori in schools. When Māori soldiers returned, not much changed. Although there was a subtle increase in the amount of Māori in urban areas, those who did move often faced discrimination when it came to things like rental accommodation or access to places like pubs, hotels and restaurants. This is who we were. Paddlers in a waka without a common goal. But even today, Māori still face several challenges when it comes to equality. For instance, why is it that although Māori are more likely to die from several diseases than Pākehā, for instance 8.5 times more likely to die from rheumatic heart disease than non-Māori, is it fair that although Māori visit general practitioners at a higher rate than non-Māori, Māori on average still have the highest levels of unmet needs of any ethnic group? Once again, a study found that first-time offenders who are Māori are 7 times more likely to be sent to court than Pākehā in the same situation. The system is rigged. But Māori weren't the only one falling victim to this archaic institution. For a very long time, the Chinese community were constantly brutalised by our government. From 1898 to 1936, we denied Chinese the old age pension. From 1926 to 1944, we denied Chinese naturalisation. From 1908 to 1952, we denied Chinese permanent residency. And if you think that this is all just made up or history, then I won't mention the mass shooting of Muslims in their place of worship. This is who we are. Does it not enrage you that we are forever out at sea, only ever imagining what that greater place looks like from a distance? So now the questions must be asked. How many more protests must be planned? How many more marches must be marched? How many more wars must be fought until that price of equal citizenship that was promised almost 80 years ago is paid to everyone? Because there is no more blood, toil, tears or sweat left to offer towards empty promises and fake smiles. Now there is only time for changes to how we allow society to operate. And this wave of change starts with us, as change rests solely in the hands of the people, not an MP, not the Prime Minister, but us, for this seed of change to be nurtured to blossom. Poipua te kakono te puawai, the nutrients that it feeds on must come from us, because consequential change has never came from the top down, but rather from the bottom up. We are in a time of the opportunity to make consequential changes to many of the systems that hold different races to a different standard looms at large. It is time we steer our waka towards a greater place. We must demand changes to the healthcare and justice system so that they will better serve all people equally, as the public conscience can dictate policy, but policy cannot dictate the conscience of the people. However, the catch is, we can only force these changes to become a reality if we do it together. For too long, those who have held their paddles in the water opposing all movement, and those who would rather sit back and watch, not wishing to interfere, have dragged down the progress of our waka. So now it's time to get them on board. To quote the notorious RBG, we will fight for the things that we care about, but do in a way that will lead others to join us. So how might we maintain and strengthen our own cultural identity whilst also affirming our common identity as members of one human family? Well, what this means is that we have to break down the barriers of separation and have constructive exchanges about how we can all move together. What truly constitutes change and what each of us will have to sacrifice to get to that greater place. Because let's face it, we have to grow each other's ability to see outside our own individual bubbles. We have to foster inside each other the gift of perspective. Yes, perspective is key. It's the ability that will allow us to see each other's struggles better. Because let's face it, we'll never understand a person unless we consider things from their point of view. A Pākehā will never understand the pain some Māori hold, just as I will never understand the fear some Muslims may have felt stepping inside their place of worship again after that day, unless we come to lower our defences and feel just as comfortable to share as we are to listen. We know who we are. We know who we've been. So now the choice of who we become falls on us. We can progress further than we ever had before, or stay right here. To quote Dr. Mahueka, e tū ki te kei o te waka, ki Pākehā koe i ngā ngaru o te wā. Stand at the stern of the canoe and feel the spray of the future biting at your face. The future is right there. All we have to do is take it. If we're all in this together, paddling as one, kia kotahi te hoi, a wave of change will overcome us, propelling us forward, edging us ever closer to that greater place. Thank you.